Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Ford, and we're here for part 31 of a 34-ish part series. Guys, don't want to be here. I'm going to be real honest with you. I don't know if I'm just upset because finally I got a little bit of sleep and now I'm all of a sudden back off track. I don't know if I am just generally a cantankerous person, terrible to get along with. I don't know if this book just sucks. I think the book just sucks. And I'm kind of cantankerous. This chapter ruined me, wrecked me. What happens in this chapter? Well, Charlie is in bed recuperating. We get a whole chapter of Charlie in bed recuperating. We get a whole chapter of it. Iota visits him. Iota's dead. Several other dead people visit him. Some people who are alive visit him. Kellen visits him. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter really. Eventually, Leah visits him. Leah? Turns out the magic sundial makes you sterile. Hooray. It turns out the big unspeakable evil in Charlie's life, in Charlie's time with Birdie, was throwing a disabled guy's crutches in the river. Hooray. Then Eris and Charlie make sex love. Hooray. And finally, Charlie decides to go home. Hooray. That's it. That's the chapter. That is the chapter. A whole bunch of laying in bed and that. So let's get into the lit crit portion of things, because I was suddenly cantankerous enough to find a little bit of fault with this on 573. Speaking of Bowditch, he had no wife, no kids, no friends. He was a loner and a hoarder, a guy who kept a bucket of gold pellets in his safe and liked his old things, furniture, magazines, TV, vintage Studebaker in storage. He was, in his own words, a coward who had brought presents instead of taking a stand. If you wanted to be cruel, I didn't, but if you did, he'd been a bit like Christopher Pauli, which is to say, like Rumpelstiltskin. That wasn't a comparison I wanted to make, but was helpless not to. If I hadn't come, and if he hadn't loved his dog, Mr. Bowditch would have died unremarked and unremembered in his house at the top of the hill. Now, something this sanctimonious, something this sort of vague and senseless, this type of moralizing generally comes from a writer who has sort of stood up for something in their life, a writer who has sort of made a name for themselves outside of the craft, and they believe they have the sanctimony to say, but this is what writing should be and what literature should be. It should be moralizing, and it should be, I should dollop my wisdom upon the unwashed masses through my words. Usually, that type of senseless sanctimony and moralizing comes from someone who has done something like that. And maybe I'm missing something. What has Stephen King stood for in his life? All I've ever really seen him do or say is some, I don't know, snotty stuff on Twitter. He just sends out snotty tweets. About what? Nothing really. Normally, someone doesn't like his crappy 70 rock or something. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, tell me there's a through thread. Tell me there is a through thread through Stephen King's work. I'm willing to listen. Maybe it's there. I've never caught it. He didn't normally pick particularly likable or heroic characters and then told their stories. Here, of course, he's telling the story of a prince out of nowhere. Spare me, Stephen. On 573 as well, we get this sort of narrative turning of the back on Bowditch. Bowditch is sort of abandoned by everyone here. Leah says, Leah was looking at, or we get this in the narrative, Leah was looking at me, twirling her signet ring on her finger and smiling her lopsided little smile. Was he good on his own, speaking of Bowditch? Or did you make him good, Prince Charlie? Perhaps I'm mistaken. Earlier in this book, when Charlie first voyages to this world, everyone knew Bowditch, and everyone liked him. Am I wrong about that? Everyone liked Bowditch, everyone liked Radar. He did bring gifts. In fact, I've even decided that I'm going to turn on that phrase earlier in the book. What was it? A coward brings gifts. A brave man does something. I can't remember exactly what it was. It was sanctimonious too. And what does that even mean? Because here's the thing. There are a billion things for which one might die, a billion hills in the world that one could choose, upon which one might choose to die. There are not all that many people in your life for whom you should make that decision. Are there? No. You can't take up everyone's fight and be willing to die for it all the time. That's stupid. That's stupidity. You have a certain number of people in your life for whom you should be willing to make that sacrifice. For everyone else, a gift is help. Mightn't helping someone actually, I don't know, help them? Yeah. Maybe it's because my sleep is off. I don't know. On 577, this is, okay. This is what really got me. This is what really got me. 577 here. We have this weird and stupid meeting between Leah and Charlie. And Charlie is getting philosophical and lovey-dovey, I guess, for some reason. And we get this passage on 577. I walked her to the door. In 8th grade, we studied haiku in English class, and one of them came back to me then. Very gently, I touched one finger to her scabbed mouth. When there's love, scars are as pretty as dimples. I love you, Leah. Tell me I'm wrong. Please, tell me that I'm the one who's wrong here. Tell me that I'm the one who doesn't know what a haiku is. That's 16 total syllables. Tell me I'm the one who can't count. Please, don't tell me that probably the best-selling author in American history doesn't know what a haiku is. Tell me I'm wrong. Please, I want to be wrong. I hope I am wrong right now. But here's the thing. Okay, 575, not necessarily, not all the time. There's a very popular type of haiku that is 353. Okay, fine. Neither is this that. Neither is this that. He's claiming that he's speaking to her a haiku. When there's love, unless he's giving us the Shakespearean there is. When there is love. Are you really? Because then we have when there is love. Scars are as pretty as dimples. I love you, Leah. Are you sure? That's what you want to go with, Stevie? Okay. But here's the thing. The greats, the greats of haiku, didn't necessarily stick to they call, I think it's on that they call it. They don't call it syllables. They call it ons. So, okay. You don't want to stick strictly to the syllables. Then what makes it a haiku? Is it the other stuff that tells us it's a haiku? Is it? Because one of the things that makes it a haiku is you tell us something about the season in which it happens. It's not just about the syllables. It's called a kigo, Kigo, I believe. And oftentimes, like, there are little inside kind of jokes that you make in a haiku. Like, if you reference a frog, that's a sign of the spring. Okay, great. But you tell us what season it is. That seasonality is one of the hallmarks, sort of haiku. Hold on. I'm going to open it up to any random haiku in here. A lizard flicks over the undulating ripples of sunlit clover. Now, I don't know in Japan what season a lizard would represent, but it's something. As I seek a bower, weary from travel, I find a wisteria flower. Okay, spring. Where are we at here? Let's find another one. So this is a book on haiku. Surprisingly few haiku. Here we go. In the fresh spring breeze, how snowy is the heron flying through pine trees. A bleak gale that raves dies away, remaining only in the roar of waves. None is traveling here along this way but I, this autumn evening. That's Basho. Basho, pretty good one. Basho. What are you doing, Stephen? What is with your little? I don't know. I don't even know what this. I don't know what this chapter is. But we get this on 578 and 579. This is when Claudia comes in. We can never thank you enough, Charlie. There will be a statue of you near Elsa's pool. I have seen the drawings, and they are quite... Elsa's dead, with a spear in her guts, Charlie interrupts. I didn't realize I was angry with them until I heard my voice. Lots of people are dead. Thousands, tens of thousands, for all I know. While you two sat on your hands. Leah, I understand. She was blinded by love. She couldn't bring herself to believe her brother was the one who did all this. But you two believed. You knew. And still you sat on your hands. More moralizing, hooray. This is when you're getting this mad about these things? You're deciding you're angry in the middle of the chapter there? Prince Charlie? And finally, for the Lit Crit section, on page 580, and this maybe could have been in the writing section as well, we get this from Charlie. I was pretty well set. Living large in the hood, as they say. No one says that. No one says that. No one says that. Living large in the hood? No. No. Doesn't happen. Now, I have one criticism for I'm just being nasty. For the writer's notes portion of this chapter, 575 into 576, we have a scene where Charlie and Leah are talking. They're talking to each other, and Charlie thinks he's in love, and Leah thinks, no, you're not. And this is, we're starting with Leah. You were there when I killed my brother. I loved him as he once was. I tried to see him as he once was. But you forced me to see the monster he became. Every time I look at you, I remember him. And what I did. I remember what it cost me. Do you understand that? Okay, Charlie, I can't love you because when I see you, I remember my brother. Okay. I mean, I could go with it. I could go with it. Charlie responds. It wasn't a bad thing, Leah. It was a good thing. You saved the kingdom. And not so you could be queen. You saved it because it needed to be saved. And Leah replies, That's true. And there is no need for false modesty between the two of us who have been through so much. But you still don't understand. I knew, you see, that the flight killer was my brother. Claudia told me years ago, and I called her a liar. When I'm with you, I'll always know I should have done it sooner. What held me back was the selfish need to love his memory. While the kingdom suffered, I fed my geese and tended my garden and felt sorry for myself. I'm sorry, Charlie, but when I see you, I see my shame. That I chose to be a mute farm girl while my land and my people died slowly all around me, and all along I knew. Oh, so that's why. So this is what happens when you can't decide what story you want to tell. This is what happens when you can't decide what story it's your story. You get to tell whatever one you choose, but you have to choose one. Never in this story does Stephen King make a definitive choice as to what story he's telling. So even we could go so far as Charlie's big sin with Bertie Bird was to steal a disabled guy's crutches and throw them in the pond. Okay, it's a pretty bad thing. Definitely a bad thing. If you see a kid stealing a crippled guy's crutches, you smack him in the face as hard as you can, because that's what you need to do. That kid needs to be smacked. That kid needs a slap. That's how you learn sometimes. A concussion resets you. I've had them. A concussion resets your views on life. That's what's got to happen in that situation. Okay, great. Thematically, what are we doing thematically there? I guess we could stretch and say, okay, early in life, there was a guy with a broken leg and Charlie stole his crutches and threw him in the pond. Later in life, Bowditch broke his leg and Charlie was the savior. I mean, okay. You got to stretch for it. You got to do that work. Thematically, what could we have done there? What could we have done that would have flipped later in the book? Not from the Bowditch perspective. We've already cast Bowditch aside. What could we have done thematically that was so miserable with Bertie Bird earlier in life that would have had a payoff when he's telling Leah here? What if it was something to do with siblings? Okay, that sounds funny. Doesn't sound right. What if, because Leah and Flight Killer, he separated them, right? Because they needed to be separated. What if, earlier in life, he had, I don't know, stolen his other friend's something, or ruined his other friend's sister's something, and blamed it on the brother so that those two would fight? Something like that. It's kind of messy, but you think about it for 15 minutes and you'd get there. there's no getting there here. I mean, you can get there with the, you know, wrote off a guy with crutches, saved a guy with crutches. Okay. Maybe. But I just don't think, I think this whole thing has been so half-baked. It's been so half-baked that there's no there. That's all I have for this. I'll be back tomorrow with chapter 32, and then we will be back the day after with the, what is it here? Epilogue. So I'm not sure what's in the epilogue. Normally they are pretty throwaway, but we'll be back with maybe just some time to talk about the story before the review. So that's all I've got for this. Hope to have you back. Blah, blah, blah.